Hello. I'm MJ Kaplan, and I work with Loomio, and I can tell you I was totally jazzed yesterday, so kudos to the organizers, but also to everybody participating. It's just an awesome collection of talent. So I'd like to know who's heard of Loomio? Great, I like that. Okay, who's using Loomio? All right, I hope I pique your interest a little bit so that by the end of the day, you're all using Loomio. So the section is on governance, but I'm gonna tell you a little bit more broadly about Loomio, and then I'll dive in a little bit on the governance application. Okay. First of all, a little bit about me, just to know where I fit in. I learned about Loomio in 2013. I was on a Fulbright looking at social enterprise in New Zealand. I'm based at Brown, and I teach social enterprise, and so I got to know the team. My background is very much around group process, sort of deep in-person group process, and first it started focusing on movements, and then I shifted to organizational development, and finally multi-sector collaboration. So when I found out about Loomio, I was really jazzed about the tool, but when I got to know the team, that's when I knew I was suckered in, and I was delighted when they asked me to do some work with them last year when I returned to the US, and I have since joined the co-op. It's a workaround co-op, so I've joined as a worker owner, so just so delighted to be part of the team. But the founding story was before my time, and it started with Occupy, and a couple of guys were part of the Occupy movement, and found that the process on a daily basis of deliberating and having to get to decision actually worked quite well most of the time, but they realized that it was really limited to those who could get there. So a couple of them were developers. They wondered what was on the internet at the time, and they did a scan and were surprised they really didn't find anything that was sort of elegant, helping, just general people come together, deliberate, but move away from just discussion to really shared agreement around action. So that's what they set out to build. And they were very intentional from the get-go. So it's an open source tool, and they formed as a worker-owned co-op. And they were very thoughtful about the fact that they wanted to build a tool much more than just for co-ops and much more than just for governance, but really so that people affected by decisions could contribute to those decisions so that the world around them is a better place. And that could be in their family, in their community, in their workplace, in their world. So everything about Loomio, we try to create an organization that's really aligned with the tool. So the problem we were trying to solve was really the frustration bottom up, that it was not fast and also often clumsy and didn't really get to action, to the results we wanted, and top down, it wasn't inclusive, it wasn't empowering. So we were thinking about networks working together, and from the early on, we thought of Loomio as an architecture for smallish groups. So smallish, we're sort of still playing with that idea. But one of the themes I didn't hear a lot about yesterday was the issue of relationship and agency. A little bit, but not tons. And I think we really think that at the essence, we're trying to create groups with tools that help people, but when they are in relationship, in community, we really do think the issue of trust is important in terms of getting to agreement and getting to action. So we're still playing a lot with what that means, but that piece of Loomio is really key. So how's it work? Really quickly, people form a group, they talk through an issue they care about, they test out with agreement. It's sort of a bifurcated platform, so there's a voting mechanism, but it's designed not to get stuck in decision, but really to make sure that you're coming up with the best, most creative, and most aligned decision, so you can play back and forth with that until you get to agreement. When you get to agreement, you have a written, clear decision and an action plan, and that leads to improved accountability. People are using it in all sorts of different ways, and I will get to governance, but first of all, movements are using it. One of the biggest user cases we have in Spain is in Spain with the Podemos movement, where we have almost 30,000 citizens in small groups working on issues they care about. Organizations are using it for plain old operations, such as the Wikimedia Foundation, just uses it day to day to get their work done. Campuses are using it, or communities, to talk about the issues they deeply care about and see if they can work through the differences in the conflict to get to shared agreement. For instance, Harvard Law worked with it on the Title IX sexual misconduct policy. And governments are using it. For instance, the city of Provo, the city council reached out to the community and formed a process to engage citizens on Loomio to make recommendations on policy. I worked with them on that last spring, and they liked it so much they're doing it again this fall. One of the best user cases, I feel, are families using it for things like elder care and end-of-life care, and students using it to have better decisions in the classroom and in their schools. So again, to the issue of agency, we feel if people are using this in every aspect of their life, they're gaining the skill set to be able to apply it to super important and more complicated decisions. So what about co-ops and governance? Loomio was incubated at Inspiral, which is a network and a hub, and Inspiral was really the first customer, and we've been using Loomio from the get-go, again for operations, but for all the governance decisions. Adobe Books in the Bay Area is a co-op that was also an early user, but to my understanding has really stuck with using it for operational decisions and hasn't shifted to governance. And I think one of the questions is, you know, when people find some of these tools, how do they take full advantage of them? One of the best cases that I love is Robin Hood Co-op, which is an activist hedge fund. And they were about 800 strong, but only about 10 core members were running the show, and they were burning out. So they started using Loomio, and they say that now about 300 members are active in the co-op. And Daniel Hassan, one of the founders, he said that Loomio has been an absolute game changer and that it has worked for them to work through complex decisions that could have derailed the co-op. A little bit about us. We're about 15 in our workaround co-op, and as I said, we're trying not only to have a tool that's doing things differently, but the way we work. We're not working with hierarchy. We adapt. We're very agile as a team. We have a steward system, which is a way to help keep each other accountable, but also supported. And where are we in our process? We've just released Loomio 1.0, which is a mobile-first tool, modular and ready for interoperability. We're really excited about this, and we have just raised about $600,000 seed funding to really grow the tool. Just think if every co-op was using Loomio, we would exceed our goals in terms of growth. So I hope all of you will think about you're intrigued to try it out and think about sharing it with others. Right now, we're in about 93 countries. We're really committed to language accessibility and other kinds of accessibility, so we're in 33 languages. We have about 100,000 users. So we are in many of the most fragile communities around the world. And last but not least, I'd just like to say that I'm the one person in the US, so I'm based in Providence and really welcome anybody to reach out with any questions. Many of you know Ben Knight, who's one of the founders and traveling quite a bit, so some of you have connected with him here and elsewhere. But we don't feel like we have solutions. We feel like we have a lot of good, deep questions. We're iterating all the time with our product and with our organization. And we want to be very much in community with other tools, other people, thinking about and trying to understand more effectively how we can help groups do the best inclusive thinking and decision-making so they can create better families, organizations, communities, co-ops. So thanks. Yeah. Like this.
Thank you. So it is a bit of a sad day to talk about democracy today. So let me start just by expressing my solidarity with the French people, and we all share their pain today, and I think we can only fight terrorism with more democracy, human rights, and freedom. Yes, we're here today. I'm from an organization in the UK. It's called NESTA, the UK Innovation Agency, and I'm the coordinator of the DECENT project, which is Decentralized Citizen Engagement Technology. And it's a project that involves 10 different countries in Europe. And we have the, let's say, very modest aim to transform democracy in the 21st century and to build the technology we need for a better democratic system that allows people to participate. So we started the DECENT project by asking very simple questions like what is democracy in the 21st century and how we can design together new democratic institutions that are more open, experimental, and able to tap into the collective intelligence of citizens. So we've seen a lot of distrust in the current political system and current political institutions which are losing a lot of legitimacy. And how we can build new forms of institutions that can engage disenfranchised people and people that have abandoned the political terrain and give them ways to influence directly decisions and which are made on their behalf. And we've seen, of course, big movements that were contesting corrupted institutions that were captured by elites and think that this kind of politics is no longer able to provide solutions for the future. But a lot of people came together to advocate for more transparent and democratic institutions, and the new generations, like we've seen, for instance, with the protests against austerity in Greece, weren't really asking new power or a taking of state power, but more really remaking the world and building a new form of engaging with each other, but changing the political system from bottom up. So DECENT started as a project by building on top of the largest experiments in Europe that transformed democracy in the last years. So for instance, the Open Ministry experiment in Finland, which brought together a citizen-led movement that the institution of citizen initiatives that basically allow citizens to come together and legislate, so co-write legislation, and if they reach 50,000 signatures, their law can be discussed in Parliament. Then we have learned a lot from Better Reykjavik and the movement in Iceland, where after the financial crisis there was a change of government and people came together and they've been writing together the constitution. It wasn't approved at the end in parliaments because there was a change of government again, but this is one form of democracy that shows us that people together can actually rewrite the core of our legislative system, which is the constitution. And then we're working with bottom-up movements like Podemos in Spain and the new municipal citizen coalition, Barcelona en Comuna and Ahora Madrid, that show us that citizen grassroots movements can actually come together, organize, and create new forms of political parties and also take institutional power. So DECENT has the challenge to really transform what we've seen as a very centralized internet economy and internet infrastructure and build the building blocks for a more federated, privacy-aware architectures and tools which gives political power and economic power to people. When at the beginning we started talking about mixing democracy and economic empowerment, many people were asking us why. And we were saying there cannot be political democracy without economic democracy and without giving people the possibility to share resources, decide collectively about where to allocate resources, and even come together to decide about the economic and monetary policy. So this was very important to connect these two things. And then, of course, we can build platforms which are alternatives to the centralized power structures of today and promote collective intelligence into politics. So we have a lot of partners across Europe, and it really ranges from universities like the Sorbonne Economic Department to big organizations like Nesta in the UK, the W3C, which is a standard body. We are committed with Tim Berners-Lee to promote open standards for the social web and decentralized network infrastructures. And then, very small free software house and hacker community like Dyne.org and the social movements I talked about before. So Descent is part of something that I think here is very exceptional. I don't know if they exist, which is basically it's funded by a program of the European Commission, which is diverting public money, which usually goes to big corporation or big telecom, just big telcos basically, to build technologies very top down. And we've managed to work together with the European Commission to invest over 50 million now to create alternative infrastructures and really empower bottom-up experiments and pilots of projects that want to build community platforms and platforms that are based on the common good and are decentralized and open in nature. So what does Descent do? Descent is focused on, actually we are not just building an app, we are proposing a federated infrastructure that is made, mainly is about really decentralized technology, privacy awareness, and connecting different applications through open API and open standards. And a very important part of Descent is the question of who owns our data. So we really started by challenging the centralized platforms of today, like the Facebook, the Googles, and now the Airbnb and all the sharing economy, by saying really we need to control, citizens need to control their data and our identity and our reputation. And we need to build new economic systems that are based on solidarity and sharing of resources instead of selling our data in the marketplace. And also because if you want to build a democratic system and use technology for democracy, you need tools that allow you to basically do what you want to do, which is self-organize and have an autonomous management through the technology. So with the democracy tools, we are providing people, like we have a variety of tools. You can see here, we have a website. I give you the address at the end. So you have citizen notification. In Helsinki, there is a very advanced system where all the decisions that are taken in the city hall can be seen by citizens through an open API, and we're building a notification on top of that so that citizens can elaborate their own proposal and propose a solution to the city hall and have them debated together with the city administration. We have collaborative policy making tools like Objective 8 and platforms that are used now in the Madrid City Council and Barcelona, electronic voting and blockchain reward scheme. Here you can see all our pilots in Barcelona, Reykjavik, Helsinki, and Madrid. And I have to say it's really exciting because there are thousands of people that are building new institutional forms and really opening up the democratic infrastructure. We do also a lot of research on forms of democracy, empowerment, and participation. And in particular, we are developing a kind of blockchain-based toolkit for a community currency. So we've learned a lot by the community currency movement, and then we say, what about using blockchain technology that can enhance this form of cooperation and give it back to the community, not to the speculative finance, but see what communities can do with auditable, cryptographic, decentralized systems. And so we're working with communities on that as well. And again, I just want to state our principle: own your data, give back control to ownership of data to the citizen, use open source and open standards, open authentication and distributed identity management, and blockchain trust to create trust and have reputation in the hands of the communities. So in order to do this, we don't only need technology, we need to really go beyond that and maybe, advocate for a new Bill of Rights that guarantees citizens' social rights, promote encryption, anonymity, autonomy, independent identity, and subjectivity formation. And again, these are our principles. And I'm going to end by giving you the decentproject.eu and tools decentproject.eu. You can see all our pilots and experiments. Thank you very much.
I'm pressing it. My finger doesn't work. Try yours.
I'll try mine. Oh, sorry.
Oh. There we go.
Of course, I ruined it.
That's all right.
Hi, I'm Anna Bernasek, and this is Dan Mongan. And together we wrote a book this year. It came out this year. Our publisher was Nation Books, called All You Can Pay: How Companies Use Our Data to Empty Our Wallets. And in this book, essentially, we lay out the implications of the end of privacy and the arrival of big data for our economy. The commercial implications of big data are profound, and just put quite simply, the consumer is in really deep trouble. And as Dan and I were researching and writing and talking about the book, we came back to this sort of question, you know, what can we do about this? It looked to us like a solution is not going to come from government and not from the private sector. And so we put our heads together and we came up with My User Agreement. Dan is a lawyer, I'm a journalist. He's really the brains behind My User Agreement. So I'm going to hand it over to him to explain all the details.
Thanks, Anna. So I have the unenviable task today of describing something that you can't see. About 72 hours ago, we ran into a minor technical problem with our website, which turned into a major business problem with our website. And we've had to leave our developer, and we're working around the clock this weekend to get it back up by Monday. But what the website is all about is this. Many of you have heard the political axiom that knowledge is power. We all understand the implications of that in the world of political governance. There is a parallel economic axiom that knowledge is value. In any transaction, the person that knows more is going to do better. We have a scenario now where very large, well-capitalized, and very intelligent organizations with deep human talent, great pools of every resource, have more knowledge than has ever existed in human history, and they're using it to make money without any public obligation. So we propose in our book something that we call data environmentalism. And the reason that we use that term is because data in its profusion is really part of our environment today, and the exploitation of data and the pollution, if you will, of the data space by the inappropriate and harmful use of it is an environmental problem. I won't get into all of the economic analysis that we published in our book, but I'll mention a few key points about data. Number one, data is a physical reality. We think of it as an abstract property, but in fact, it's bits and bytes, photons, electrons, subatomic particles. It's all real, it's all tangible, and it's all owned, because data is property in its most fundamental sense. We have legal principles that govern data that also treat data as an abstract or intellectual property, but there is no doubt that data is property. So the question really is, who owns it? It's essential to our well-being. There are very few people that can get out of the mode of dealing in the data space. It would be possible if you were, say, in an Aboriginal tribe or something like that, but in almost every other aspect of the modern world, it's not possible. It can obviously be used for harm. The harm is incremental, much like other types of environmental pollution. It accrues over time. Our basic principle is that your data belongs to you, that you have rights in it, and you should claim those rights. A couple of points about the current state of play. Nobody is protecting your data. Your data is being exploited, misappropriated, and used in terrifically complicated ways that you don't have a chance of knowing about, and nobody's helping you. The government is not the United States government with its gridlock, Good luck hoping for that. Not the European government. Despite some incremental moves, the actual reality of protection does not exist. The technology companies are not doing it. As a matter of fact, they're working against the individual for the most part, and the service providers are not doing it. Regulation is not coming. There's nothing on the horizon that is going to address the fundamental nature of this problem, and the political environment is not conducive right now to any near-term change. There's no public consensus on the topic. People don't understand the issue, they don't know what to do about it, and there's no way to move the ball forward that's readily at hand. There's no active constituency, we've got political stalemate. You're on your own. That's where we are, and that's what we're trying to address. So, we come to my user agreement. It's a very simple idea. We have a website, myuseragreement.com. You can go to that website on Monday, and in a very simple process, you can adopt your own personal terms and conditions. Right now, it's a standard form. It's drafted with the public interest in mind rather than the interest of a data giant. Over time, this concept can unfold in many different ways, but this is a starting place. The problem essentially is one of collective action. If I were to adopt my own terms and conditions and notify Amazon that I have adopted my own terms and conditions, Amazon would almost certainly ignore me. And if they didn't ignore me, they might refuse to do business with me at very little impact to them. If a sufficient number of people agree with our movement to create a different scenario where individuals have terms and conditions that actually mean something and that respect their rights in a way that doesn't deprive them of the benefits of the internet, but that creates a safer and more balanced and more appropriate economic environment, if we get a sufficient number of people involved, it will not be possible to ignore, and we'll be in a different game where they'll claim their terms, we'll claim our terms, and we'll see what happens. Nobody knows what will happen. We use established legal principles. We're not reinventing the wheel. We don't have to. Property is a fundamental issue in all legal scenarios. We believe in principles, not rules, blah-de-blah-de-blah. I'm at the end. I will tell you that since you can't go to the website this weekend, if you would like, you can go to our temporary fix, which is you can send an email to myuseragreement@gmail.com, and we will send you an email back as soon as the website is live, and you can sign up if you like. I encourage you to review the contract. I encourage you to read the book if you like books about data and economics, and I thank you very much.
Hi. Okay, so I will tell you today about distributed organization and Backfeed. So what it's really, so actually you can also call them distributed collaborative organization, distributed autonomous organization. There are many names for that. But actually it's really, in a way, it's a future version of platform cooperatives. And I will tell you more about them. So let's start with a little chunk of imagination. So let's try really to imagine a self-organized world. How would it look like? How would it look like if people will self-organize and spontaneously collaborate and coordinate like birds do, for example, like flocks of birds? How would it look like if a social network like Facebook exists without Facebook Inc., or Amazon and eBay without Amazon and eBay Inc., decentralized ride-sharing applications, how it looked like if millions of people will collaborate to allocate resources, a decentralized VC. Is this possible? So we can see in the thousands of years that we are here on the planet, we can see an evolution of structure. We started with no structure. We proceeded to centralized authorities, federated authorities, recently distributed peer-to-peer marketplaces, capitalism. And finally, we're getting to a stage where we will experience distributed collaborative organization via stigmergy, basically the same organizational principle that nature already, I would say, discovered by millions of years of evolution. So how it looked like stigmergy for humankind. So firstly, what is stigmergy? So stigmergy is an indirect coordination between agents to form a self-organizing network that produces complex and seemingly intelligent structure without the need for any planning, control, or even direct agent communication. So when ants together build this amazingly complex structure, there is nothing intelligent about that more than simply indirect algorithmic coordination between different ants. Different ants doesn't have even to be aware of each other. So what will it take to make such a spontaneous organization for human beings? So, okay, so platform cooperative needs an infrastructure, like a computer or a server, something to run a software on. It needs a governance, set of rules for decision making, for value distribution, to incentivize collaboration, etc. And of course, an interface. So luckily, we have the blockchain and more generally, distributed architectures. So very briefly, the blockchain is really a machine-to-machine consensus protocol that allows people to have a universal shared database, which is secured and trusted for exchange of value. It allows to deploy distributed software that anyone can deploy, anyone can use, but no one can corrupt or tamper. The next layer on top of this stack is a distributed governance layer that includes decentralized reputation system, decentralized value distribution between collaborators, decentralized human curation, decision making, then of course applications. And that's what we do in Backfeed. So Backfeed, together with blockchain, really gives the infrastructure for decentralized collaborative organizations, which really makes cooperation the winning strategy. It's kind of similar and analogous to the internet stack. So there is the internet, there is TCP, HTTP, the application layer, and the browser. And a similar stack is being built these days in the blockchain space. And gradually, we start to see the outcome of that, which are distributed applications. So again, try to imagine decentralized insurance, millions of people insure each other. With today's technology and knowledge, there is no need for an insurance company. Decentralized startups, how it would look like if millions of people will collaborate together on making stuff together. Decentralized journalism, thousands of people writing content, editing content, evaluating each other's content, and making media and publishing possible without any intermediator. And it's going on and on. So I just would like to show you a few proof of concept that we've already built in Backfeed. For example, what you see here, oh, this is PDF, okay. So what you see here is basically a snapshot of a decentralized chess game where many, many people can play together, one hand against the computer. People can suggest a move. Other people can evaluate each other's moves. And through this process, gain reputation and also tokens that would later may have value. Another use case we've designed is basically a Chrome extension over Slack. People can basically register their contribution, can evaluate others' contribution, gain reputation and token, and by that make a decentralized collaboration using Slack. Finally, we will be launching in a few days a decentralized library, which is a decentralized collaboration for the curation of the web. In a way, it's the database for a search engine, but a social-based search engine, so that the search that you are doing will be affected by the alignment of interest with the people around you. So with that, let me invite you to contact for anything, whether it's if you're just interested in these topics or you want to participate in the experiment. By the way, this experiment is done with Ethereum, and we also have experiment of the Slack extension with WeShare. So the WeShare Fest 2016, the program is basically arranged in a decentralized collaboration with these tools. And you're welcome to contact for anything, whether it's for using those kind of tools or participating. The whole project is open source. You can find it on GitHub. And also, you can, there is no link. So you can just get into the website and register and be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Matan. Matan and I were actually just in London together at the Ethereum conference. So I think that was a great introduction to blockchain in terms of what people here would be interested in. So I'm Ashley. I'm working at a company, ConsenSys. There's a lot of us here in New York, but we're around the world. And we are looking at how to use the blockchain to do things like build a web of cooperative economies. So it's exciting to be talking to people here who are already very aligned around demonstrating new models. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I'm looking at that, how ConsenSys is looking at that, and some strategy for implementation, ultimately with going towards mainstream adoption of these technologies. So I studied cultural anthropology. I just want to give a little bit of context of applying the cultural lens to the web. So looking at like web, the first era, all about communication and digital identity. So we have things like chat rooms. We see things like Facebook popping up. People are starting to see that they can share a culture with someone else that they've never met before. And that leads to mobilization of capital, property, and ideas. We start to see things like crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Uber. We're starting to move things around and not just sharing culture, but actually getting things done together, leading to something like the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring is interesting because we're seeing revolutions that are happening specific to places, but then they can also be connected on a higher level as part of a larger movement. And that is what's leading us into this moment here today where we're seeing a reorganization of society. So my work at ConsenSys, and I think what a lot of people here are doing today, are trying to imagine the different kind of models that we want to live in the future and then extrapolating backwards. And I think the blockchain is one of the key examples of how that's going to happen, going to more fluid organization structures. So I think you hear a lot of phrases about decentralization, and I think that for the purposes of cooperative economies, it's helpful to think about it as moving from more concentrated systems to less concentrated systems. So we're looking at the way that communities are already organized right now from a top-down and a bottom-up perspective, and then designing flexible technologies with which to facilitate them to become more ephemeral entities that are evolving moment by moment. So the blockchain, what we see is a key enabler of that. So literally just being a catalyst that is facilitating this energetic shift that we're already seeing. And I can't go too much into how exactly that works, but I think Matan already did a good example. But I think some key points are it reduces the overhead of trust. It creates a shared information infrastructure, which can be like a collective memory. It reduces the abstraction of value or creates that potential, which I'll go a little bit into. Incorporating cycles into the design of these cooperatives. And all this is possible because of the binding reputation fabric that's possible with cryptographic identity. So Inflect is a platform that I'm working on that is an open source community network. It's a way of getting people used to owning their data through a cryptographic wallet, building a community network around access through that wallet into different applications, like maybe the Backfeed application or other things you'll see today. And it's also event management, so ticketing for events, RSVP, managing something like this conference for the purpose of giving people an experience of cooperating together, and it's something that we're already organizing ourselves for. So the whole point is to catalyze communities to form with a shared reputation fabric, and that will create the basis for cooperative economies in any moment. So this is what Inflect looks like now. It's still in the process of being developed, but this is just the main page for starting an event. In the future, you'll be able to do things like add different roles, set bounties for things you need to get done, create a tiered invite structure. This is your dashboard, so being able to invite people through here, share documents, share budgeting, and all of these are using blockchain tools for collaboration, similar to what you saw with some of the interfaces today. And so then this is where we start to get into visualizing our communities. So each of these can be a relationship over time with a person, with a group, and also specific events. So this will be an interactive visualization. And then you're not just forming, this isn't just viewing your communities through events, it also starts to be communities from other things. So these are all examples of a community. People who participate in a crowd fund for a farm share project, people who attend a conference like this one, people who are part of a microgrid in Toronto. So all of these are examples of communities that we're already part of online, but in a decentralized infrastructure, we're going to be pulling them together into this platform. So this is important because then in every moment, transactions can be created within the perspective of the community and value can be distributed transparently and fairly. That can help us reach an inflection point for Pop-Up X. So any campaign, any cooperative, any project, any sort of collaboration that requires this shared reputation fabric. So these are all platforms. Foam is an decentralized architecture platform. Transactive Grid is a solar energy distribution platform. FarmShare is a network of community-supported agriculture platforms, and Ujo is for creative industries, starting with music. So people that are interacting in this from their wallet, from their cryptographic identity, are all going to be generating data, and then also forming groups with which they may be able to collaborate on in the future. So why might this be useful? Well, so for collaboration networks, you're starting to connect to people who have similar interests to you, who participate in similar projects as you, and because you have the shared reputation fabric, you can go ahead and immediately make a decision about how and why you may want to work together. Then that creates better search, and also part of this is, choosing not to have advertisements on our platforms, or if we do want to have ads, we make those decisions ourselves. Loyalty programs, rewards for community contributions, so you can set up bounties for I need someone to manage this shared space and people can get rewarded for that. Lending networks amongst your community instead of maybe going to financial institutions that are more predatory. Friendsurance, sort of a similar thing, and granular privacy sharing, which I think is a big concern for a lot of people here. So these are sort of other, is that the time? Okay, so these are some other tools for identity management. These are all things that we're working on that will enable collaboration, crowdfunding, budget management, decision-making tools, et cetera. But so because it's open source, it could be also integrated with other tools presented today. This is just a funding model that we're looking at managing as a cooperative itself. And finally, this is a proposal for Callicoon, New York, where we have a community of people that are looking to implement the farm technology, the energy platform, and seeing how the value and resources get distributed in this community, and ultimately with the goal of moving away from the abstraction of value in the form of money and seeing if we can collaborate more effectively and develop this as a model to be used elsewhere. And just acknowledging my own personal web of connections. You can check out the website and also send me an email for more information. Thank you.
Hello. Good. So, I'm going to talk about CoLiga, and bear with me. I'm aware that the metaphor is very cheesy, but please bear with me. It's very important for the conceptualization of what I'm going to tell you. So, I'm going to start talking a bit about myself. So, I was born in Brazil. I went to a Waldorf school. I grew up in a very full house where a lot of people were always gathering around, and my partner is from Poland. We came to Berlin about 5 years ago, where we found a very strong sense of belonging. I found that it's very important to talk about where we are coming from, because in Berlin we found this ecosystem of many grassroots communities. There are communities from the club scene to the co-working scene to the maker scene, and these communities inspired us a lot. Including, we were able to start a space that currently hosts around 100 people in Berlin. That it's working with 3 platforms. One is a working platform, one is an art platform, and another one is a food platform, and we're trying to experiment on offline methodologies of collaboration to build this community. And another project that we started is a cleaning service. So we actually, when Airbnb started to become common in Berlin, we thought, oh, there must be a gap for people to clean those apartments and get this work done. So we started this company offline, just doing everything over emails, and into a point where we came to start designing a software that would allow those cleaners to collaborate and self-organize by picking up their jobs. So we designed the company in a very small manner, in which the group of cleaners, which still are around 40 cleaners, they meet every 2 weeks for a community dinner. They get German classes. So we really built the structure of the company in this sort of small format, and then built the software to allow them to manage themselves. So another big inspiration for us is the mixture of technology and nature. Why we're saying that? Because I think it's very important that technology doesn't become the center of things. So I think it's very important to build technology that is so easy to use, that takes so little time, that we can focus on the natural encounters, on the natural interactions of people. So we started once we saw the modules working on this space and also on this cleaning service, we saw the opportunity to extend that to other people. So we started to think, how can we create a marketplace, or how can we create a marketplace that not allows for a more decentralized development? How can we create a marketplace that helps people in groups of people to together create their own marketplace? And one of the characteristics that we found to be very important in a marketplace, especially in the offline marketplace, is this idea that you are you connect to somebody that is coming from somewhere, you connect to the local provider, or you connect to somebody that has an offline reputation. And another part that we saw in the online marketplaces is that you have much more efficiency. You have this so-called digital identity that allows for much more scalability. So the question was, how can we mix those? So those two main elements, how can you mix those, and how can we take this what we've learned from those grassroots spaces and build it into a product? So we designed a product that is very, very simple, and it has two main views. So even inspired the product on Tinder, if you guys you know what it is, which is an app, a dating app. So you have two main views. One is a searching view, and another one is a chat. And within this chat, we can really negotiate your contract. You can really close an interaction with somebody. And this within this app, you can either be an individual, and you can create your profile, and you can really list what the services or what the things that you can offer to your community, or you can create a group. So let's say there is a co-working space, they have an offline reputation among their members, and they want to create a group. Within there, they can create this group, curate all the members, and people can find this group and interact with the services of this group. So, and if this group becomes big enough, which is what we're already working with, is we can also replicate the app and give them our own app. So that means it's a platform as a service for anyone to start their simple on-demand economy platform. So this is and another point that is really important for us is that individuals in this platform, because what has been happening mainly on this on-demand economy is that individuals are not presented as they are not differentiated. They are mostly just a number that is controlled by the company. So in this platform, you can create your own skills or your own services, and you can also curate others. So you can recommend other people, recommend who you suggest and for people to find. And so people can navigate through the profiles of groups or of people based on their curation, based on a natural curation. So what are type of groups? So we imagine collectives or cooperatives, maker labs, co-working spaces, or small companies or enterprises. Any group that has an offline reputation can start a group within CoLiga and eventually also grow into having its own app. So yeah, the idea is that you can co-create those co-leagues which are marketplaces. So the idea is to be an incubator for those. So we create this infrastructure where we extremely lower the barrier of entry for anyone to start this, and once they reach a point where they can go out of that, we can provide them the technology to just become its own unity. So that's it. This is my email. Then I stick to the cell, and please contact me if you have any doubts. I couldn't go into details, but if you're interested, that's it.
Hi, everybody. It's hard to hear back here. I can kind of hear myself talk, but that's about it. So my name is Ethan Winn, and I'm here as representing Seed Co-op. I'm also with Collab Co-op, where I'm a worker owner. Just want to start off by noting that I'm extremely humbled to be part of this conference, part of this lineup. There's so much really radically inspiring kind of dreams represented in the code, to quote yesterday here. And in some ways, the platform I'm going to be presenting is extremely foundational and extremely basic to the work that we're doing, but hopefully it also in a deep way opens up radical new possibilities, really enabling visions and new platforms to emerge based on collective need and vision. Also, I have to kind of give a quick plug with all the education sector intros. Really interested to see what happens when platform co-ops are applied directly to education. So, a quick note on who we are. We're a growing collective. We're all volunteers right now. I was thinking this morning about how to introduce the kind of story of what brought us here. And I was thinking it's kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street, where we kind of slowly met each other one by one and realized we were all having the same dream. We're like, whoa, you had that dream too? And it's always a little different. Every angle is a little bit different. But the vision was really there. And it's basically been gestating and growing for the past 6 months or so. Just a little note about where we are. I saw a great TEDx talk, which has gotten millions of views, around radical vulnerability when you're presenting. And so I got about 3.5 hours of sleep last night. We had coders all around the world who were building and enriching the platform. We're at that stage where I luckily do have, I think the site's still live. We'll see. But we are, this is very much an in-progress project. And so that group that kind of met, there's an ad hoc steering committee right now. I'm guided by some really wonderful minds in the cooperative development space. So it's Kevin Bayek from Lyft, Camille Kerr from Democracy at Work Institute. Just amazing thinkers in terms of sustainable economy. And we saw Janelle, Daniel Goldman is another great innovator in the Bay Area. And a lot of the technology folks at CoLab and in our broader network that I guess the upper left there is Joseph Elliott, who's kind of lead technical architect, and we have people literally all over the world who are working on this right now around the clock. That team together, if the kinds of projects that larger team has worked on span a really wide range, working with lots of co-ops, lots of social enterprises, as well as financial institutions, a lot of experience with online payments, and that'll be really important as we'll get to in a second. I was told I should show an example of what the app is. So here, this is the app. We'll get to these screens in a minute. But the goal here really is to connect platform co-op startups with the funding resources and membership that they need and demonstrate viability. And our logo is an acorn, and basically the inspirational quote there is the creation of 1,000 forests in one acorn. It's an Emerson quote, which many are probably familiar with, and that's really our hope here. And so fundamentally, everyone's here because we kind of all had the same dream, in the sense that there's a whole range of new cooperative and collective economy opportunities, from the blockchain to different forms of worker-owned cooperatives and platforms, to the Commonwealth cooperatives, to kind of next generation current co-ops, which are evolving to meet new needs, competing with new platforms in the kind of extractive space. And the real question that we're having is, how do we get there? It's a familiar mantra if you're kind of connecting in this space, that we have an amazing idea and a first iteration app, and how do I connect with the members, the funders, the users? And so fundamentally, that's the problem that we're trying to solve. So we basically need to connect platform co-op ideas with membership, with funding, and with development resources, best practices, governance guidance, et cetera. And we need to be able to do that at platform scale. We also need to be able to demonstrate that kind of these more far out ideas are viable, they do have support, and provide a forum for people collectively to demonstrate the support and accomplish these goals. So that is, and that is Seed.coop. Seed.coop's mission. Make really clearly that Seed.coop is in no way kind of a competitor to any of the platforms we've talked about. Our goal specifically is to enable everyone else who's presented here today to create sustainable, thriving organizations and products that can really change the economy. The next slide is a meme, and I've become really sensitized to questions of digital ownership, so I'm going to fly by it. It also kind of dates me, but I think it's kind of funny too. So fundamentally, Seed Co-op is a platform for driving co-op membership. It's a directory of innovative cooperatives. It's a crowdfunding platform for co-ops. It's a community for connecting cooperative movement around shared needs to start seed new co-ops. And ultimately, this is getting into the bigger vision, is a cooperatively owned and managed funding pool for investing in the future of the cooperative movement. So we really have a vision of starting with a basic crowdfunding platform, membership management platform online, and building that eventually into a kind of radical new kind of fund for supporting cooperative movement. And as I've been trying to make really clear, we're just getting started, but we have built something so far. It's at seed.coop now. Currently, so cooperatives are able to use seed.coop to accomplish their goals. And that's basically they're able to launch membership drives online. They can receive pledges of membership for campaign, and they can process funds currently. And they can also integrate those signups with their back-end systems. And supporters also have an interface where they're able to discover cooperatives to support. They can engage at multiple levels, from free through different paid levels of membership, or other sorts of funding opportunities. They can join the co-ops as members, and they can also become members of seed.coop, currently supporting that platform, and ultimately be having a voice in the management of some resource pool. And so now to go back to those screens in a bit more depth, step one, because we're really hoping to get people here excited to submit their co-ops into the listing and directory and get support through the platform. So step one, basically submitting your co-op, a really clear form online, listing your goals, description, impact, etc. I'll do this very quickly. Step two, our team will work with you to get your media together, your story together, as well as your back-end payment processing. Step three, we'll approve the campaign. Step four, you can help use social tools to get your campaign out. Looks like this. Step five, the seed community members will basically join themselves and also help market and share your campaign for you. This is what that looks like. Step six, when you reach your goal, so if you're trying to demonstrate viability, you can set a minimum. When you reach your goal, then the payments will be processed into your account. And step seven, members will be imported into your account. Join us, go to seed.coop now, sign up, submit your co-op idea. If you're an open source developer, become part of our team. And also, if you are involved in the community and concerned with economic justice, reach out, because we want to build that into the platform. Thank you very much.
Hello. My name is Max Dana, and I am the co-founder of something called the External Revenue Service. I'd like to start by talking about two problems that led me to start working on this project about 5 months ago. The first problem, some of you might recognize, fundraising sucks. It really does. You spend a ton of time writing letters, writing emails, courting donors, preparing fundraising events, marketing your crowdfunding campaign. Really, this is time spent convincing or reconvincing or reminding people of the value that you're presenting to the world. And I think that it would be a much better use of those resources to just do the thing and not spend as much time convincing other people of its value. But fundraising also sucks for the people who are on the receiving end of all those asks, because the more and more things that you support, someone's clapping, the more things that you support in the world, a sort of donor fatigue sets in, because the number of asks you're receiving is constantly increasing. You're getting more letters, more emails, invited to more benefits, you're getting more crowdfunding campaigns in your face. And as this number of asks increases, the value of the thing behind it tends to diminish. You sort of forget what the original purpose is because you're being bombarded. But behind all of this furious fundraising activity, there's actually a bigger problem that I started to realize, which is this. Wealth inequality sucks. The dirty little secret of the nonprofit industry is that it also has a 1%, 99% problem. About 15,000 of the 1 million charities in this country, all of which have budgets over $10 million a year, account for over 85% of the $1.65 trillion of revenue in that industry every year. So you have this very small number of huge organizations who have a seat at the table with the wealthy patrons and the government officials and the foundation presidents, while a huge number of small and medium-sized organizations scrambles like crazy to pick up some crumbs from the floor around that table. So the real challenge is not to build a better fundraising platform, it's actually to build a bigger table. So what is the External Revenue Service? The External Revenue Service is a peer-to-peer tax system that allows people to share their income easily with others. People have pushed back on me a little bit about calling a donation a tax, but when you think about it, a donation is really just a tax that we levy on ourselves to pay for the civilization that we want, that the government is not actually paying for. So a couple things about the platform. It is a give-first platform. It is oriented towards the act of giving, and the rules are very simple. There are givers and there are receivers. Givers pledge a percentage of their annual income, for example, 2%, to a portfolio of receivers. So they allocate their pledge to those receivers, 10% of my 2% to this person, 20% of my 2% to this organization, and so on. These pledges are collected every month, packaged together with the pledges from other givers, and dispersed every month to the receivers as a lump sum. This is an example of such a pledge by Grace, who's a software developer who makes $150,000 a year and is giving 2% to this group of people and organizations. And Walt, the poet, he's super excited to get his $25 in tax per month from Grace. But as he clicks through to accept this pledge, he encounters a strange message that says, in order to receive this pledge, he must also make a pledge of his own. And this is a really important constraint that kind of powers the entire External Revenue Service. And that is, actually everyone's a giver. No one can freeload. So in order to receive funds through the External Revenue Service, you yourself have to first be willing to give. So Walt starts to build his portfolio, and I stole this word portfolio from the world of finance because I think it really elegantly captures the idea that you should support things that you love over time and not just as a one-off basis. And so he notices a couple of strange things as he begins to build his portfolio. One is he can add the External Revenue Service to his portfolio. If you want to support the network, you can fund it. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. We'll never ask you for a fee. And the other thing is that he can't give back to Grace. And there's a reason for that, and that is to ignite a network effect. I believe that generosity is both contagious and addictive, but to make that happen, to sort of ignite the generosity engine, you need a network effect. And so requiring receivers to also give and preventing the sort of give back that Walt is trying to do ensures that this network is always expanding and not just eating its own tail. Moving money. So there's a really great essay by a poet named Lewis Hyde from 1979 called The Gift Must Always Move, where he talks about the notion of gifts in folk tales and how the social bonds created by the movement of a gift between people has as much value as the gift itself. And as this network grows and a larger number of small denomination gifts begin to move through it, we have to find a way to make that money move around really cheaply. So I am exploring the world of cryptocurrencies as a sort of transactional underlayer for this network. If any of you are blockchain hackers, I'd love to talk to you. Transparency control, we've talked a lot about privacy today. So the network effects are really designed to promote discovery among things of value in the world, but you are always in control of what you share. You are free to broadcast who you support and what percentage of your income you're giving, but you also can share nothing if you choose to do that. It's up to you. Asklessness. This whole system is designed to reduce the amount of asking and the energy put into asking. So I am deliberately leaving out all tools of mass communication. And finally, no rewards. Generosity is not a transaction, and if you're doing something for a reward, you probably shouldn't have that thing in your giving portfolio to begin with. And just a few final notes about how this is organized. It is going to be organized as a decentralized collaborative organization, not owned by anyone, not even me, and it is not controlled by anyone. It is unbanked, so it keeps its assets in cryptocurrencies and shared wallets. And this is to promote the use of that as a transactional method, but also to have solidarity with the 2 billion unbanked people in the world that this could serve. And finally, it is open source, and anyone in the network can contribute. If you would like to join us, you can find us on Slack at slack.externalrevenue.us. Thank you.
No, not this one, not this one. This is the old one.
It's the same one we just added.
Ah, cool. Yeah, so I will... Okay, so what if capital was peer-to-peer? What if you and I commanded the forces of finance? What would that mean? We are Robinhood, a distributed capital services provider. And I'm here with Rafael Chap, our General Counsel, and Benjamin Lozano, our Chief Products, to explain what does that mean. My name is Akseli Virtanen, and 3 years ago, in the middle of the financial crisis, we affirmed that there's no outside financialization, and we released our own activist hedge fund called the Robinhood. We started to operate an algorithm, we call it the parasite, which followed all the transactions at the American stock exchanges, over 100 million or more, and replicated in our portfolio synthetically the emerging consensus actions of the financial oligarchy. We organized the hedge fund as a cooperative, so anyone could enter with 30 euros into the cooperative, and the members decided which part of the profit they kept to themselves and which part of the profit they kept in the common pool, from which we invested then into commons producing projects. We locked into the brains of the financial elite at Wall Street. We took their most important means of production, their knowledge, their position, their information, and we put it to work for us. It was like we created a simulacrum of a monstrous false power, a bad copy of the financial asset accumulation model, which opened up into something else, which didn't belong to the orthodox economic space. So this was our pilot in using financial technologies for creative, distributive, organizational purposes. With it, we understood three things. First of all, finance, it's really essentially a technology to make future actionable in the present. We understood that we have the power and imagination to re-engineer it, and we understood that this is just a beginning. There's a whole new species of emerging economic operators, makers, doers, collaborators, crowds, often collective, who need new ways of finance, new ways of owning, new ways of doing things together in a way that by doing together they are able to create opportunities which would not otherwise exist. They're able to act on them, speculate together, arbitrage together, hedge together. This is what we needed. And we understood that the cooperative structure which we had built lacked in dynamism. It was not It lacked in distributive force. It was too centralized. There was too much unity, too much community, and we set ourselves a task to effectuate a more fluid, more autonomous, more centralized way of doing things together.
Hi. Every time a business takes funding from the general public and in exchange promises a financial return of some sort, without the involvement by the public in the management of that business, that's a security. And every time you issue a security, that's heavily regulated. So I just want to tell you about some new regulatory developments. 3 years ago, the Jobs Act in 2012 was designed to provide easier access to capital markets for small businesses and startups. And there are already platforms out there that leverage the Jobs Acts to create new opportunities for investment online. But this is only for accredited investors, so you have to be wealthy to be able to invest. 2 weeks ago, finally, after 3 years of deliberation, the SEC finalized equity crowdfunding in the US. These rules will become operative probably in May of 2016. And what these rules basically do is they allow anyone to raise funds from the public. You do a public offering to self-engineer your own capital structure in order to bootstrap any kind of project or business. So that opens up a new possibility for the widespread use of peer-to-peer financial instruments. Imagine a world where with a few clicks you can invest in your peers, you can get finance from your peers. What would it look like to own portfolios of investments in your peers? This is all now technologically possible as well. We have a distributed ledger now that provides unprecedented levels of transparency regarding flows of funds between parties. This is, of course, the blockchain, and this could be very highly disruptive to the financial services industry.
What do we know? Financial technologies are powerful. Finance is a powerful space because it's a space that's chocked full with attractors for human behavior. We also know that social media is pervasive today. Social media has, let's concede, made some very important innovations in the way that humans are able to connect with each other and enjoy a wider, more easily facilitated sense of sociality. And so despite the fact that we know that, for instance, Facebook is actually treating us as the product, and the users are actually the people who are monetarily benefiting from our data analytics, we use it nonetheless because it feels good, it's pleasant, it's fun. So we know that social media is pervasive. 2.6 billion people will use social media actively use social media by 2017. So we know that financial technologies are powerful, and we know that social media is pervasive. So what we want to do at Robinhood Services is we want to build a space where finance is free to be social. How do you change this? And so we have a product, perfect timing, that's called Peerhood. The question was, what would it look like if you and I commanded the forces of finance? And I would say that that's a time and a place in which we would arrange the attractors, we would self-arrange the attractors of our own behavior. And the shorter answer is that's what it is to be autonomous. And so a situation where you and I commanded the forces of finance would be a situation where society would be autonomous with itself, for its own purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joel Dietz. Approximately 1 year ago, I became the founder, or one of the co-founders of Ethercasts, which remains the largest educational channel dedicated to Ethereum and smart contract technology. And I'm currently working on a book that is due to be out at the end of this month on distributed application architecture, which fits into the infrastructure topic here, but is highly technical. So if people want to talk to me about that, I welcome it, but I'm going to focus on something a little different. I'm also the co-founder of the Decentralized Autonomous Society, which is the largest group dedicated to exploring issues around blockchain governance. And I am sort of reputedly the inventor, or at least popularizer, of a couple key terms that are now becoming something of industry standards. Those are crypto equity, which refers to asset issuance on a decentralized ledger, and distributed collaborative organizations, which you've already heard something about. I was also involved in launching about 174, I think, distributed collaborative organizations. And as of right now, I'm the founding partner, one of the founding partners of the Blockchain Advisory Group, which is doing some of the largest projects around blockchain technology, particularly as applied to public goods, and often in partnerships with governments or large utilities and other industry players. That's all sort of interesting background information, and that last part is the sort of business side, and I'm happy to talk about any of that privately. But what I'm going to spend the most actually time talking about is what I'm most passionate about, and that's what you see up here. So this is a fairly intellectual audience, I noticed, and so I'm going to go back to the history of political economy and talk about swarm economics, which is actually a hugely interesting topic in the sense that at the time that we got modern political economy, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with the advent of those theories, there were some iconoclastic voices on the outside, namely people like John Ruskin and William Blake, who said, if we go down this route, all we're going to get is these dark satanic mills, and it's going to become this terrible state of affairs. And John Ruskin's metaphor was actually the human body. He said, if we just focus on the bones and the muscles, and we have really good theories for how those work, but we ignore everything else about humanity that makes it great, we're just going to get this ossification. And I happen to believe that that's what's happened, and that one of the reasons we see all these problems and scarcity dynamics and zero-sum games is because we have fundamentally an ossification of the way that we approach market economics. And so the way that we've gone about going forward is really rewinding and saying, hey, what if we actually start with a different set of assumptions? And you'll see our logo is a sort of empty circle, which sometimes gets me in trouble, but there's a long precedent of that. And so let me just go into a little bit of what that means. So, classically, in a lot of models, we have like these expert-led models, and an expert kind of tells you what you should want. Like Roger and Ebert tells you what movies they like, but that may not be the same ones that you like. And of course, they're corruptible. And we had just this awesome kind of general trend towards collective intelligence and really user-driven behavior, where you say, here's what I like, and data science and other things like that can be employed to say, well, given what you like, maybe you'd also like this. And a lot of that also can be incentivized so that people can actually make money doing that and not be on the kind of losing side of economic propositions. So to kind of implement some of this, well, we actually, I think this is very, very important for me, is we kind of start with the heart of things. And one of the first things we did after doing a $1 million crowdfunding campaign last year on a platform we built ourselves to do, so it was a sort of first crypto equity crowdfunding campaign, was set up a co-living space that was dedicated to community, that hosted community events, intimately involved with local ecological and artistic projects. And just recently, this is I think 2 weeks ago, it became the first co-living space ever to be featured in TechCrunch, which for those who know the industry is actually pretty significant in the sense that they're interested in startups, they're interested in things that are going to provide quick returns. That's like what the technology industry is focused on. And hey, look, we have like, you know, a Bernie Sanders guy up on our wall, and we have like all this other really like community-driven stuff. And they're like, oh, well, maybe we should start paying attention to this. And we've gone out very intentionally and said, look, our core value is to build community. And so we have to like, you know, do this ourselves. And so we've hosted lots of community events. And when we've gone out and engaged in decentralized collaborative organizations, we've actually not necessarily gone with the ones that are high financial yields. We've gone the ones that have kind of community at their core. And one kind of awesome aspect of that is, you know, today, or actually last week, I think, here in Brooklyn, sort of one of our early projects actually launched their own co-working space and set up their own community. And so the people are kind of going out, but they're kind of going out with that heart-first mentality. And I don't know, that's what I'm most passionate about, so I'm not going to stop doing it no matter what. And it's financially sustainable now, so no one can really stop me either. So. And make it fun, like, so why not? Just kind of, hey, like flair, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be boring all the time. And make it work. So there's a lot of technology that needs to be built, but iterating with the desires of the community. And sometimes that looks very collaborative decision making, sometimes it doesn't. But this is, you know, open source software, we're iterating on it constantly. Our community is participating, and you can participate too. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Konner. I'm a web developer with Sassafras Tech Collective, which is a worker co-op, and I'm the lead organizer of rCredits in Ann Arbor, Michigan. rCredits is a local currency and community payment system. I used to think local currencies were pretty pointless. I thought all they did was encourage people to buy local, but not really change anything. Then I started learning about the problems with our current money system, and I discovered that a local currency can not only provide an alternative to that, it can actually provide a community with local democratic control over the economy, even including the money creation process. So a community can come together, democratically decide what it is they want to see, and then literally create funding for it. But first, why should we care? What's the matter with money? Well, in our current system, most money is actually created by private commercial banks. Banks create money by lending. When a bank makes a loan, they type a few keystrokes in a computer, and the balance in your account goes up. Nobody else's balance goes down. That's money. You can spend it, you can withdraw it as cash, and it is money that didn't exist before that loan. It may be hard to conceptualize, but virtually all the money in the economy was created by a bank making a loan in this way. So money equals cheesy clip art. Why is this a problem? Well, first of all, these debts can never be paid off. They are literally the basis of our money supply. In order for the money supply to keep expanding, which it's constantly doing, the debt has to keep expanding as well. Our society is in permanent debt to banks, and that debt is growing. Second, it's private banks that are deciding what to create money for, essentially what our society values. And of course, they make those decisions based on what's going to make the most money for them, not what's best for the community, which leads to greater inequality and messed up priorities. Finally, when you borrow money from a bank, you have to prove that you're going to be able to pay back the loan plus the interest, which generally means producing more stuff. We live on a finite planet with finite resources. We can't keep producing more forever. We have to slow down our production, and we have to do it really soon. A lot of people think of money as neutral, just sort of like a means of exchange, but money itself, the way it's actually created and the way it's governed, is part of the problem. And so one of the things we need is a new kind of money. Which brings us to rCredits. rCredits is a democratic mutual credit system and community payment system that was started by a nonprofit called Common Good Finance in Greenfield, Massachusetts. They designed it to be replicated in other communities and to be locally democratically controlled by each community. They're all digital. You get a card when you join. It can be scanned by a smartphone at a cash register. Looks like this. And they're exchangeable one for one with US dollars. You can connect your bank account online and transfer dollars directly in and out. You get a $20 credit when you join. There's a 10% bonus on every transaction for both parties in the short run. That is, you get a 10% rebate on everything you buy in rCredits and a 10% bonus on everything you sell. Those bonuses can be spent at participating businesses, but they can't be cashed out for dollars. That's a temporary incentive to help grow the rCredits economy, and we expect it to be phased out after a couple of years. But democracy is really the heart of this system. There's an innovative voting system that combines the best aspects of direct and representative democracy. It's sometimes called liquid democracy, that's used for decision-making. And in the long run, the real promise is the ability to issue rCredits as a community for whatever we democratically decide we want or need. So instead of the banks deciding what to create money for, we decide together as a community. You can start an rCredits community in your area. This system is designed to be replicated. Form a group, study the website, talk to us, talk to people and businesses in your community. So far, there are only two, Greenfield and Ann Arbor. But there are several others currently organizing around the country. It's not a perfectly polished product. We're still working on the user experience, but it has been up and running since 2013. It's working. People are using it. It's a lot better than starting from scratch. There's one more thing I think needs to be said because I think it's kind of the elephant in the conference. We are gradually moving into a future where human labor is becoming less and less necessary. Self-driving cars will be on the road in 5 years or less, and they'll probably replace millions of jobs. If we succeed in building a worker-owned Uber, it's not going to be able to compete with the real Uber that doesn't have to pay drivers. It's not just cars. Technology is replacing human labor in lots of industries, almost every industry. Believe me when I say I love co-ops. Co-ops are my life. I've been working in co-ops for 12 years. I've started 3. But co-ops are not going to be able to solve all our problems when the economy no longer needs our work. We need bigger solutions for the economy as a whole. I see rCredits as the extension of the co-op principles to the broader economy, and I think it could be part of that bigger solution. If you're interested in starting an rCredits community or learning more about rCredits, there's a whole lot more to say. Come to my workshop at 4 p.m. today in room U204. Ask me your hard questions. I love them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all presenters, and you for your attention. Let's give them all one last round of applause. So allow a little bit of time, but try to get to the next sessions as quickly as possible. Also, please make sure to check the online schedule for the workshops this afternoon. There are a lot of really excellent workshops that have been proposed and that will be held in the classrooms. There's still some room for more workshops to be added. You can do that at the registration table. Thank you all so much.
Reception? The reception? Remind me of the reception.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to do that?
Yeah. And just as you leave the room, you all saw the change in the program, right? So we have a very nice reception for all of you at 6 p.m. There will be a lot of food and drink, 6 p.m.